Hey folks, thanks for tuning in. Rok has joined me again to continue the series that we are doing um, with regards to Varga charts or the divisional charts of Vedic astrology. And Rok has already initiated the family of divisional or Varga charts he has found in the previous session itself, which is the episode 2. If you have not watched the previous episodes, I think I'd surely recommend you to go and check out, because a lot of basic ideology of how Rok is working or researching on in terms of identifying the actual construction and logic behind the divisional charts is kind of present in the previous videos. Welcome back, Rok. Thanks for joining. It's always a pleasure talking with you.
Yeah, it's a pleasure to be here again.
So I think this is going to be even more. This is going to be an even more interesting session with 4 Vargas we are going to deal with today that have similar kind of construction from a harmonic and non-harmonic harmonic point of view, not necessarily the actual mathematical construction, but
yeah. In the previous video, we looked at the horas and the Trimsamshas, and today we will look at another family. Basically, I placed them into a family because I found out that they are harmonically related, and these are the Drekkana, the Chaturthamsa, and the Dwadasamsha. We will see that somehow these 3 Vargas follow the same principle, and if we put them all around the chart, it's quite obvious that they were really designed with the same idea, and they are fit for each other. You know, they're made for each other. They are harmonically aligned, and it's very interesting. So we will look at this, and we will also go just one by one, share some thoughts on it, if you agree. So, okay, maybe I'll just share my screen. So this is I would just like to remind of the previous family we looked at. So here is the Hora and the Trimsamsha, and we see that they are designed to fit each other, you know. So male elements fall in the sun's horas, and female elements fall in the moon's horas. More on this, it's just best for the viewers to look at the first episode. So now we have a similar thing. It's a family of 3 Vargas.
Can you zoom this image?
Yeah. Let's zoom in.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we have our zodiac, 12 zodiacal signs. Then we have the Drekkanas, the 3 portions of a sign. Then we have 4 portions, Chaturthamsa, and 12 portions, Dwadasamsha. We see that what they all have in common is that they start with the sign itself. So in all the 3 divisions, the first division belongs to the sign itself, and then to other signs according to a particular rule for each division. For example, in the Drekkana, we have the trine lords. So the signs that are trine to each other, so they are of the same element, they rule these 3 portions. Some authors stress signs, but mostly they stress the rulers. So even though we have Aries, Leo, and Sagittarius here, the ancient authors would stress their rulers. So they will say, okay, the first Drekkana is ruled by Mars, the second by the Sun, and the third by Jupiter. And this is basically just different planets getting rulership over different portions of a sign according to a specific rule. So here we have the trine lords or the trine signs getting their portions. So we have the same for Taurus. We have Taurus, we have Virgo, we have Capricorn, and then for Gemini we have Libra, we have Aquarius, and so on. Always different element, the same element. And then for Chaturthamsa, again we start with the same sign. So here, if we look at Aries, we start with Aries, then we have our angular signs, or square signs. So we have Aries, we have Cancer, we have Libra, and we have Capricorn. And the same goes for all of the signs. So we can see that here we have definitely a different theme going on. Here we have the theme of a trine, and here we have the theme of angles. So what we have is a relationship of one sign. Say here we have a relationship of Aries to the other two trine signs. And here we have a relationship of Aries to the other three angular signs. But in the Dwadasamsha, again we start with Aries, and for all of the signs we start with the sign itself. So Taurus, Gemini, and so on, and then following natural order. But here we have the sign itself, Aries, in relationship to all other signs. So it's like a micro zodiac within one sign. But it starts with the sign itself, as opposed to the harmonic, the 12th harmonic, which always starts with Aries, because this is actually where the difference is between the harmonic Vargas, the Parivriti Vargas, and the non-harmonic Vargas, such as these three. That these Vargas are focusing on the division of a sign. So we're really dividing one sign by a particular rule, but the harmonic Vargas are more concerned with the division of the whole circle, of the whole zodiac. So there we just divide the circle, and the natural order of the signs is repeated throughout the circle as many times as we divide the sign, the zodiac. So here we deal with the Vargas that are dividing one sign particularly, and of all of these, I can see that the Dwadasamsha got very much importance in the old text, especially in the Yavana Jataka, where it's considered that if the planet falls in its own Dwadasamsha, that it's equal to being in its own sign.
I think that's true to Bounds and Decans as well, right? From Hellenistic astrology point of view.
With the Deccan, yeah, I mean, it looks like there were, how to say, today we have like this idea that's prevalent from Brihat Parashara Hora, that each Varga is meant for something specific, like Drekkana for happiness from siblings, and for example the Chaturthamsa is for like fortunes, and some say also for home, house, and accumulated wealth or whatnot. Different opinions, but in the old text before Brihat Parashara Hora, we kind of don't find these ideas. It's just basically we have the Drekkanas, we have like the Trimsamshas, or in Hellenistic astrology the Bounds, and the Horas, and basically all these divisions are just like fine-tuning tools for for the placement of a planet, or especially we read a lot about the moon and the ascendant in various divisions, but it's always just slight modifications of what the main sign is indicating. we don't really read, okay, now we will look for Horas for wealth, or we will look for to Drekkanas for siblings and so on. This is actually just there in Brihat Parashara Hora, which is interesting. It seems that the use of the Vargas in other classics was fairly simple. Just one would just look at, for particular technique, one would look at the lord of a planet. Say we have Sun falling in, I don't know, in third decan of Aries. So Jupiter becomes the lord, the decan lord. And then, you know, a specific technique would say, okay, so you look at the decan lord, and where the decan lord falls, is the decan lord dignified, or is it aspecting back the planet that falls in its decan, and so on. So the techniques were more like this, you know, oriented to the main chart. It's not like, as I always say, it's we really don't find these ideas of creating separate Varga charts in the classical text. It's just, they are just not there. I mean, it's quite clear. So it's all just the Indian astrologers would use square charts or diamond charts. So they would have these Vargas, you know, listed in a table, or some would simply have them memorized. They would just look at the degree of the planet, and they would immediately know its placement in the Vargas. But this approach is kind of more graphic, you know. If someone is used to reading a round chart, a wheel chart, then one can have them all placed around like this, and immediately you just look at the position of a planet, and you can see in which Vargas it falls in, which in my opinion is very handy.
But in order to use this in a practical reading or something like that, I think we need a lot of practice, and also perfect alignment of our brain in terms of interpreting the
I
particular
mean, it's
position.
it just brings, you know, more and more levels to interpret. And this is, I mean, as far as I can tell, even the old astrologers were aware of this, and they were not using all of this stuff together, you know, because especially what we have, you know, evidences of old horoscopes. We can see that in Hellenistic tradition, you know, they use the bounds, sometimes decans, and the 12 parts, if they felt like, you know, they would calculate them, you know, the Dwadasamshas. And in India, it's just Rashi chart, maybe Navamsha, usually sun and moon chart, and the Navamshas many times just given in a table, so not as a chart. So yeah, this is, you know, a theoretical proposition, I guess.
So have you worked much with Chaturthamsa as it, because for the bounds and decans, we usually consider when a planet is placed in its own bound or a decan or Dwadasamsa, a planet is considered to be in its own sign, and it gains some kind of auspiciousness to its existing position. So will that work in Chaturthamsa as well? Have you tried your
in Chaturthamsa?
Yeah, so if Venus is placed in fourth division of Cancer. So the planet, or no, not fourth division, the second division of Cancer. So it falls in Libra.
In Libra, yeah. So yeah, it's very difficult to say, because for Chaturthamsa we don't have much instruction. It appears only in Brihat Parashara Hora, so it's really not a Varga on which we have a lot of information.
So I think we need to
unfortunately, yeah, it's just for us to simply experiment and see where it takes us, because, I mean, we can keep this in mind, you know, that it's, Parashara says, for fortunes, and Yeah, maybe we can understand this differently because I've seen that whatever Parashara says, it's more symbolic. You know, when he says children for Saptamsha, okay, we can think a little bit deeper and see what else is there, you know, under this word. And the same for Navamsha, and I also think that the same goes for the Chaturthamsa, you know.
No.
I would think about this, you know, more as an angle. So, you know, it's like the four pillars and how a person is anchoring into life, you know. But yeah, this is just, I think that whatever I will say now, it would be just, you know, pretending I really have it figured out, but I don't. So it's just I'm trying to understand these Vargas through contemplating them, you know, putting them together visually and trying to make sense of it all, because this is really one quite uninvestigated topic in astrology.
Yeah.
But I mean, people are using these Vargas, you know, every day, and they are doing all sorts of stuff. But the question is, should we really use them in all such ways? Because there are no documents of this.
Yeah. Okay. So, first, I think making this image would have been a very tiresome and tedious process. So, hats off.
Yeah, I mean,
for that work.
it takes a while, yeah.
Yeah.
But it's fun. I like doing this.
Yeah. Have you started working, like, I mean, at all the levels? I said,
What?
have you started like utilizing this particular concept, like using 4 levels as a dignity part or something?
No, currently, I'm just using the Drekkana, you know, this triplicity type, not the
Okay, good.
Chaldean, the Hellenistic, along with the Hellenistic bounds and the Dwadasamsha. You know, this is like, you know, now are my main ingredients. But I
Okay.
also look at, of course, I look at the Navamsha and the Saptamsha for now, you know, the two harmonic charts, but that's done differently, you know. In my opinion, we shouldn't mix the two, because
Yeah.
in graphical representation, these Vargas are like this. They are just sectors of signs, and they should be graphically represented like this, or if you're using the square chart, as a column or as a table. But this gives more clear graphic representation. But the harmonic Vargas are another animal, you know, it's different. Those should be calculated as is the instruction of Kalyana Varma in Saravali implies, is that we should simply multiply the position of the planet, and by that calculation, which I'm explaining in my article on the Navamsha,
Great.
we are just arriving at the position of a planet in the main chart, because we can imagine that, okay, we have this natural order of the signs appearing, say, for Navamsha 9 times, repeating 9 times throughout the chart, and a planet falls in a particular sign in any of those 9 micro zodiacs within a circle. And these, say it falls in Aries Navamsha. All the Aries Navamshas have the same geometrical relationship. They are a part of a nonagon, you know, of a 9-pointed polygon. So the geometrical symmetry implies that, okay, they are somehow part of the same entity, you know. And as we see with the Dwadasamshas, which we will show later, they are used in the Hellenistic tradition within the main chart. So you just calculate the Dwadasamsha positions and put them back in the main chart along with the Rashi chart, the main chart positions of the planets. And I'm experimenting now with doing this with all the harmonic Vargas,
Okay.
like Saptamsha and Navamsha. So in this case, this is now very theoretical, but I would encourage other astrologers to try it out, because at least to me it makes sense. It might not, but
I think Deccan's bounds and Dwadasamsas being used together is already done. Maybe we just have to check how
yeah,
Chaturthamsa works. So yeah,
sure. I mean, it's a part of this family, so it should not be very difficult to figure it out.
yeah, sure.
Yeah, so here we would just calculate a position of a planet, say in the Navamsha, put it back in the main chart, and then, which is totally crazy, we could see in which of these parts of a sign it falls in. So there's just, another, it adds another level of interpretation. It makes everything, everything even more deeper. And yeah, the Dwadasamshas in Hellenistic astrology are used in this exact way. So there you go. There's one interesting way of using the Vargas, but
Yes.
I think that one should be a super mind in order to be able to interpret it all. And maybe in the past there were such astrologers who were able to do this. Who knows?
Yeah, maybe because Indian astrologers and ancient sages had a lot of memory power that is probably not doesn't exist. That kind of memory power doesn't exist today. I think so. Maybe it does, but
yeah.
So that.
Okay, so yeah, go ahead.
No.
Okay, well, I will just show. I would focus on the Dwadasamsha because it's like the. It is like the. Okay, I forgot to mention something. The Dwadasamsha, okay, it seems that the other two are based upon it. And the interesting thing is how they are aligned. We see that each Chaturthamsa begins with its own Dwadasamsha, right? So we have here the sign of Taurus, we have Taurus Chaturthamsa, it starts with Taurus Dwadasamsha. We have Leo Chaturthamsa, starts with Leo Dwadasamsha, and so on. And then the same thing with the Drekkanas. We have Taurus and we have Taurus Dwadasamsha. We have Virgo Drekkana, and it starts with Virgo Dwadasamsha. And we have Capricorn and starts with Capricorn. So it's very interesting. Yeah, you want to add something?
No. Go on.
Okay, so I just wanted to illustrate this, how they are nicely aligned and harmonically related. And so Dwadasamsha seems to be the king here. And I would just, maybe as an interesting thing, I would read more from Hellenistic perspective and from Yavana Jataka, because really we have the most information of the use of the Dwadasamshas in these texts. They are not so much discussed in the Indian classicals.
Yes.
Okay, so this is the text of Hellenistic astrologer Firmicus Maternus, and when he is delineating planets, after he finishes with everything, he always says, okay, look at the Dodecatemorion, which is Dwadasamsha. So he says, when Saturn is located in these houses, carefully observe his degree, so that you may find in what house and in which terms so the equivalent of Indian Trimsamsha,
Trimsamsha.
the Dodecatemorion is, the Dwadasamsha position is. From this information, you may discover the whole power of Saturn. So this really gives, the basic instruction of how to use the Dwadasamsha. He says that observe the degree of Saturn, so the degree is important. And then you may find in what house and in which term that the Dodecatemorion is. So he's concerned, he wants to see in what house, the Rashi, in the natal house, this Dwadasamsha position falls in. So maybe it falls in the same house that the planet is in, or maybe it, falls in another house. And the Dwadasamsha is like, I like to say that it's like the subtle body of the planet. It's the subtle level. So how the planet is influencing other planets or houses through its seed form or subtle form. So therefore, it's like, he also says, Firmicus, that the Babylonians, they give all the prediction to the Dwadasamshas, to the Dodecatemoria. But Ptolemy gives it to Antisha, and we give it to both. So he stresses both, because both indicate these secret positions that are not obvious. And then he goes on to say, to stress this for every planet. Here for Jupiter, he says, always look carefully at the Dodecatemorion of Jupiter, so that you may discover his strength from it. And he goes for Mars. In order to assess the power of Mars more accurately, carefully observe his Dodecatemorion and the terms of the Dodecatemorion. So here we have repeatedly this idea that he's checking the Dwadasamsha position calculated to a degree, not just seeing, in which Dwadasamsha something falls in, but really calculated to degree by multiplication. And the viewers can see the formula in my article on the Dwadasamsha. I'm explaining it,
Sure.
how to calculate it. And then see in which house and in which term. So it basically, one division falls into another division, the term, the Trimsamsha. And actually we have this idea also in Yavana Jataka. Where is it? Chapter 8. Aha, here is what we said earlier. Yavana Jataka defines the power of the Dwadasamshas. It says, the influence of the planets in the degrees of their exaltation is complete. In their Navamshas, as in their Mula Trikonas, in their Dwadasamshas, as in their houses.
That's a crucial information.
Yeah. As in their houses, and in the degrees of their dejections or in their enemies, it is the least. And then we can move to.
So he means to say that it kind of mitigates the aspect, a hard aspect from another planet as well. Okay, cool.
Yeah, sure. I mean, it really mitigates debilitation, because the planet is debilitated in the Rashi and then exalted in Dwadasamsha. It's there it's like in its own sign, so it really mitigates it.
Yeah, cool.
So it's not I will not say that it totally changes it 100%, but it's really a mitigating factor.
Okay.
Okay, and here we see the same instruction we find in Firmicus, from Firmicus Maternus. In each sign there are Dwadasamshas, Dodecatemoria, which fill the sign with their own influences. There are subtle modifications in respect to height or depth of action when their influences are combined with those of the terms of Trimsamshas. So again we have Dwadasamsha seen in the term, in the Trimsamsha. And it's quite a classical technique in Hellenistic astrology. But we find it only in Yavana Jataka. of Indian texts, not in other texts. And it might be this actually, I kind of believe, that it might be the key to the use of Vargas, because we actually have so much of this use documented. And in practice, this is for the first time when I started to use the Vargas like this, to put them back in the Rashi chart or around the Rashi chart, and don't see, for example, if I would look at the ascendant in the Navamsha, I will not count the houses in the Navamsha from the ascendant, but I would simply look at where the ascendant by Navamsha position falls in. Does it fall, in which house it falls in? Does it join any natal planets there? And so on. So the houses are still the houses of the main chart, of the Rashi chart. We don't count new houses in this method. And I think I can, I think we can just demonstrate it. Okay, here we have a chart of a painter, and the main position, the Rashi positions of the planets are here, near the circle, and the Dwadasamsha positions are here in the middle.
Okay.
Towards the center. So this is how they did it. When I first saw this, I thought, oh my God, this is funny. No, you cannot do this. It seemed so weird because I had this idea, okay, the Vargas are separate charts. But it makes sense, because even if it's a separate chart, what can prevent you of putting this chart over the main chart? Because after all, both share the same size, don't they?
Yeah.
They are both made of 12 signs, so we can just, conflate them together, boom, and you have this. This is how the Hellenists were doing it. So, for example, we have Venus. She's a painter. We have Venus, quite tightly angular by degree, falls in her own bound, which is, exalted Venus in her own bound, and by Dwadasamsha position, which is here, again, she falls in her own bound. In, the skillful Gemini, working with hands, creating, and Mercury, the 10th ruler is in
Taurus.
the sign of Venus, in his own bound. So it's like, we see that this Venus comes to the 10th house by her Dwadasamsha position and really reinforces the natal position, the Rashi position of Venus. So this is how they were doing it, and this is how the authors of Yavana Jataka were doing it. But they didn't have the bounds here, but the Trimsamshas, which are a similar concept.
Okay. So, is this the customized model of your PD?
No, this is the classical one. There are still Chaldean.
Okay. Sorry, I didn't notice. Yeah.
Chaldean decans, but now I've changed them to triplicity decans because I like them more. So this is, it's the normal one. Anything else I would... the moon. The moon also, natally it falls in the bound of Venus, but also by her Dwadasamsha position, she gets exalted and falls in the bound of Venus.
Okay.
You see?
Yeah.
And the point is that this painter is really into painting stuff that's, say, spiritual. She's really painting from her spiritual inspiration, and we really have a strong connection, here between the 10th house and the 9th house.
Yeah.
Mercury, Venus, Moon. So all the planets you would want for
Moon
what
is
she's
also
doing.
Moon is also in a very good dignity.
Yeah. Moon is exalted here
Yeah.
by Dwadasamsha. Mm-hmm.
Placed in it's
Yeah.
bound
So
out.
this is I think that this is like the middle ground of the use of the Vargas. It's not limited to just the list of the Vargas and just see the ruler, but it's not like a separate chart when you count the houses. But still, the houses remain all the main chart, but then just the Dwadasamsha positions fall in different houses. I think it's very interesting, and I like using it. I mean, it's the first time that I feel like confident using a Varga,
Oh, good.
because before I was just like many times I was just looking at these Varga charts, totally bewildered, because it's just like it was really foggy altogether. Because okay, now we have here different houses and here different houses, and you just have you open a few Vargas and suddenly you have 5 or 6 fifth houses. So this is like an approach where houses are here, and just the Varga positions fall in different houses of the main chart.
Sure.
So yeah, I mean, I would really love to hear from other astrologers who would be inspired to try this out, how they find it, because I can be very much enthusiastic about it, but it's always nice to hear from others how does it work for them.
I think you are kind of doing this thing pretty much the same way as I do, because I always use bounds and decans, but Dwadasamsa is not as extensively as you do. But I'm used to the bounds and decans. So, but not the Chaldean decans, but the triplicity decan rulership.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I also use the triplicity.
So I just have to add 2 layers. Dwadashamsa is, I know I used Dwadashamsas, but not as extensively as I would have liked to. I would like to do, but maybe I have to do Chaturthamsa and Dwadashamsa even more than I used to. So I think I'll get a pretty good picture of how to work with it first. Then I'll kind of figure out whether it works out well. But I just think from a hypothetical and a theoretical point of view, I have a confidence and a gut feeling that it's probably going to work well. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's just when you start working with this, it becomes really natural,
Yeah, it's organic.
It's really such a organic, natural system. It's quite intuitive when you figure it out.
Yeah. So that's. Do you want to say anything else? Like.
Yeah, I mean, I'll just close this. We don't
Okay.
need it anymore.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you want to comment or something?
I mean, I think it's exciting because I don't think I've been kind of motivated or inspired by any other explanations of divisional charts or construction and working of divisional charts. So I think you gave me a kind of new perspective and probably one of the most promising ideas in terms of utilization of the divisional charts. So I just need some more time to work with it. But I think I already kind of told you that I have subscribed to this idea and I'm already working on it. So yeah, so I surely recommend everyone who watches this to try and check out and provide feedbacks. This is going to be here forever. So even the next generation astrologers can kind of check out this and see how it goes, maybe after 50 or 60 years.
Yeah. I mean, it's a little bit unfortunate because most software don't allow you to do this.
Yeah.
to put the Dwadasamsha positions or whatever harmonic Varga positions in the main chart. So one way is to do it by hand. I also think I will publish on my website a blank sheet with the square charts and some place around it. I already designed it. It looks like this, and I use it in my practice.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, so we have also, this is, the main chart, and then you have two more. So we can
Yeah,
put,
yeah.
for example, the Drekkana around, or the Dwadasamsha, or whatever. I usually place Saptamsha and Navamsha around it.
I mean, it's pretty much like a Sudarshan Chakra. Yes.
Yeah, I like Sudarshan Chakra. Yeah, so if anyone's inspired, I will put it shortly on my webpage, and it can be downloaded,
Yeah.
printed, and if your software is not allowing you to experiment like this, you can just do it on paper.
And I think it's time for us to also talk a little bit about PD. Uh, we are using a software program called Planet Dance, and Rok has almost kind of messed up and worked with most of the options that the software provides. And
Yeah,
uh,
I messed up.
I mean, messed in the sense, uh, like went back and forth in terms of utilizing and checking so many options that are available. So I think you should check out the
Yeah.
software. So I'll probably add the link to the software, uh, possibly in all my videos henceforth. So we'll see how it goes.
Yeah. Really, I mean, I have to say, because I'm totally inspired by this software. Again, it's called Planet Dance. It's programmed by a Dutch programmer, astrologer. And it's just unbelievable.
I already used the
Basically,
Android version of it.
Android.
Yeah,
Okay.
I already used. I've been using the Android version for about 4 or 5 months. Yeah.
Great. I mean, this software allows me to do basically anything. You just have to figure it out, and I hope to make YouTube tutorials for it, because it can be complex,
Yeah.
and for some things you need to know the workarounds, but everything can be done, and it has probably the best Hellenistic module of all the softwares.
Yeah.
So many useful modules from classical astrology, from medieval Persian, and even now it has a developing Vedic module with
Yeah.
an awesome nakshatra wheel. I know
Yeah.
you're a fan of it.
Nakshatra.
Yeah, and it has all the ayanamshas you can want. So really, check it out. Planet Dance, incredible. It's a free software, but
Yes.
don't be shy to donate, because it's really
Good. Worth it.
a good thing to support such developers who are making such incredible software.
Yes. Just one thing I want to add to that is we started our one of the most first conversations that we had was on softwares, and you recommended Planet Dance. I had it on my. I had the setup file on my computer for a long time, but I never used it. But you recommended me to start using it, and once I opened it and started using it, I just felt like I would probably never want to purchase a paid software or a paid version of any other software, at least for next 3 or 4 years. So it kind of eliminated that particular kind of investment that I had in my mind at this point of time, and I'm totally in love with PD. Planet
Yeah,
Dance.
yeah. I was this close of purchasing an expensive software, and I checked it out. I used the demo. I was not quite happy. It was not quite what I wanted. It didn't have many of the things I wanted it to have. And then I was just like, searching on Google for free software, because I've been using one Russian software, Z, which is also a great software, for years. And I wanted to see, okay, maybe there's something new. And I come to one page which recommended Planet Dance. And I've been using Morinus and Valens softwares before, And then when I started to work with it, I was just blown away, because
Yeah.
it's really it can compete. I mean, maybe it can even
Surpass. Yeah.
outclass many of
Paid stuff.
expensive, $300 plus.
Softwares. Yeah.
Hmm.
Sure. So with that, I think we'll close this session and we'll get back with Navamshas and Saptamshas. And
Hmm.
until then, you just kind of keep uh, trying with whatever Rok has said, and we'll see. We'll see you again. Thanks, Rok.
Thanks.